Looking back at your preliminary task, what do you feel you have learned in the progression from it to the full product?
So we were able to recognise a lot about the sound. So we noticed that if we changed our surrounding or our environment, that, for example, if we went from being in a room where there were people, whether they were loud or not, you can tell a huge difference from that room to being in a quiet room where it's just your voices and no other sound at all. This helps the overall film, because if you're listening and if you're watching something and you're listening to it but you can hear all this background noise, as small as that can be very distracting. So looking back at our preliminary task, now that we've changed the whole surrounding, we've noticed that it creates a better sound quality and a better quality film in the end.
In our preliminary task, we filmed it, like recorded all the sound on the camera that we were using, and we had people in the background talking, and you could hear all of that. So what we had to do was we had to edit the sound, which is quite difficult for us. We had to edit it, so we had clips where the people weren't talking and clips where they were talking. So we had to overlay them and do that with, as well as the visuals with the audio. So that was quite hard for me and Faye when we were trying to do that, to match it up. And I don't think we did quite match it up fully. And also we put a really high contrast on the sound. So even if you put like your computer or whatever you're watching on a low volume, you can hear it's really crackly and like it's fuzzy, like the sound.
Yeah, so we learn a lot about sound from our prelim task because in our preliminary task you could hear people in the background, so we really did, as soon as we did the voiceover for ours, we knew exactly that we needed to be in a really quiet room, which actually, if you compare the sound quality in our preliminary task and our actual film, is much better in our actual film because we were in a quiet room and no one else was talking and no one else was there, so it really just made it a lot better.
And also we chose, with our film opening, I don't think we did this deliberately, but I think it just happened. We didn't have any specific clips where anyone was talking and they were being filmed at the same time. All of our speaking was overlaid on the top.
Yeah, so we used a separate recorder for the voiceover, so we used the apps on an iPhone to record the sound rather than doing it through the camera, which also makes it better quality. Yeah, we also learned from the camera, it was more just about practicing different shots. So we were able to practice the range of shots and we were able to work out what worked better and what didn't. So when we did our actual task, we recorded everything several times, and often from several slightly different angles, so that when we were editing we could look at which one we actually preferred, whereas with the preliminary task we didn't do that.
We also
we weren't allowed
there
to.
were some bits where we just tested out the camera and looked through the lens instead of actually recording it as well, even just trialling that in bigger effect than our preliminary.
And with our preliminary task, I think we just went to where we wanted to shoot, did it, and then did the next thing. Whereas with our actual film,
to think about locations.
We set up shots, filmed it. If we didn't think it was right, we'd set it up somewhere else, do it again. And then also I think majority of our shots, we repeated them a few times. Yeah. So if we got back to when we needed to edit it and we'd only had one different shot for everything that we did, and most of them are blurry, we're going to have to completely reshoot it. So if we had a range of shots to choose, range of what they called? Range of takes from the same shot and the same angle, we could pick and choose which one looked the best.
Which one was the best quality.
Yeah,
we also learned a lot about editing, so it was, with editing mainly, it was more just about learning how to do it, but we learned what cuts worked and what didn't, and how to add in text and stuff, so we learned a lot about editing between them, and the preliminary task, doing the prelim task really helped us with the editing on our main film, because we were able to work out what was good about it and what wasn't, and the best way to edit and the easiest things to do when editing.
Yeah, and even though we didn't have, with text and stuff, we didn't have the biggest range of text to choose from. No. And one thing we couldn't do was we couldn't choose where it was on the screen. It was in a specific place with a specific font or size or whatever. So that's something we learned to kind of work with. And we made it work throughout where we put our text.
From the prelim task, we also learned a lot about time management. So we learned that we really needed to manage our time when filming. So there was no point spending ages and ages on one shot and then running out of time. we also learned that we needed to plan the shots that we were going to use. When we went into the preliminary task, we just kind of did whatever shots we liked the look of at the time.
Whatever we thought was good, didn't we?
Yeah,
and
whereas
then when we went back into editing, it didn't look that great.
Yeah.
We just had to go with it.
Whereas in our main film, we planned all the shots we were going to do beforehand. So we planned in detail, and we did a shot list, and we did a storyboard. So, for example, we start with the establishing shot, which pans across the graveyard. But then throughout the opening, we also used like close-up shots of her putting the flowers on the grave and stuff. So we'd planned all of that before we went. So we knew a lot more what we wanted to do, and we thought much more carefully about what shots we were going to use, which we hadn't done in our preliminary task, which really makes a difference when looking at it.
Yeah, we knew where we wanted to go. Like, we went to your house and we started there, and then we walked to the graveyard where we wanted to shoot, and then we walked around to the forest. So we knew where we wanted to go, and then we also we set out the dates that we were going to shoot stuff on, rather than when we were doing a preliminary task. We just kind of turned up and did it.
Today we'll do.
Yeah.
What, where, when, all of that, just to make
and
sure
who
that
needs to be there as well, and getting the people that we needed that needed to be there.
Yeah, so we learned that we really did need to plan, because when looking back at our preliminary task, we noticed how much of a difference it makes, because comparing the two, well, firstly, the actual journey to making the second one was so much easier because we'd planned, and it was a lot less stressful because we'd planned everything. So yeah, that's what we learned. Anything else anyone needs to say?
Nah, bro.
Goodbye.